MSU gets its first offensive line commit for 2024. Also, would we rather go 8-4 with Payton Thorne or 6-6 with Katin Houser? And, well, yeah, of course, a few more mailbag questions. Let's go.
You are Locked On Spartans, your daily podcast on the Michigan State Spartans, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Spartan friends, Spartan family, Locked On Spartans listeners, thank you so much for tuning in to Locked On Spartans, your team in green and white 5 days a week. Got a packed show, of course. We got some recruiting news that we're going to get to at the top of this show. But first, hey, we've got a new one for you. That's right, HelloFresh. Skip trips to the grocery store and count on HelloFresh to make home cooking easy, fun, and affordable. It's why America ranks it the #1 meal kit. Go to HelloFresh.com/college60 and use code college60 for 60% off plus free shipping. Free shipping, God, you can't beat that. There we go. That's what we're talking about. Shout out to HelloFresh and welcome to the podcast. We're going to be kicking things off here with some football recruiting news and some good recruiting news. Yeah, thank God. Let's go. All right. 2024 getting a roaring start with our offensive line class with Andrew Dennis not too far away from Mount Pleasant. And why are we wasting any more time? Let's just get to the kid right now. Andrew Dennis becomes this class's third commit for 2024. Like we said, the first offensive line commit for this class, 6'5", 275 pounds. He is rated as the number 52 offensive tackle prospect on Rivals, and then also the top 50 interior offensive lineman per 24/7 Sports Composite. If you listen to anything I just said the last 20 seconds, those are two kind of somewhat different positions here. Rivals has him ranked as an offensive tackle. The 24/7 Sports Composite has him ranked as an interior lineman. Well, you can probably figure it out now, but this kid is versatile. He even said as much as, yeah, right now I'm probably an offensive tackle, but I'm going to be learning different disciplines as well because once I get to Michigan State, they could throw me anywhere. Of course, that's paraphrasing. That's not a direct quote, but yeah, that's essentially the essence of this kid's commitment. And, hey, look, you got a really good kid here because, well, I mean, this is the first 3 notes of my bullet points about Andrew Dennis. Versatile. Okay, he's versatile, and he's versatile. I mean, just like we said, this is a guy that Coach Cap can just plug in and play anywhere at a 6'5", 275-pound frame. He's got that 6'7" wingspan as well. So, no, it's maybe not out of question that he plays perhaps right tackle here. Maybe just a tad undersized in the wingspan and the size for left tackle to protect the blind spot of the quarterback. But, hey, how about just some interior offensive line for you as well? And certainly doesn't seem like he's opposed to anything. And this is a kid also that, well, has a hockey background. And we'd like to point that out because, no, he's not just this prototypical, straightforward football kid. Like, he does come from a very athletic background. So, we're never going to say no to athletic offensive lineman, especially one that still maybe isn't done growing at 6'5", 275 pounds, because just 2 years ago, almost a half foot shorter than that, well below the 275 number. But yeah, this is a kid that's growing, not just in the game of football and his skills as an offensive lineman, but also just physically growing as well. So there you have it. Simple as that. And I think it's really cool, too, that you get a kid that has a story like this. And this is something that really maybe speaks to the 99.999% of us listeners, including myself as well, is that how cool is this that a local kid gets to commit to a school that he grew up rooting for. Of course, running routes in my backyard, really thought I was going to be the next Charles Rogers, or dribbling the basketball in the driveway, thought I was going to be the next Drew Neisel or Chris Hill, but unfortunately, I have the athletic acumen of a podcaster. But it is awesome that this kid that grew up a Michigan State fan, not too far away, just maybe a little over an hour in Mount Pleasant, Andrew Dennis gets to commit to Michigan State, a school that offered him about a month ago. And this was after he camped with Michigan State, got some guidance from Coach Cap, of course, the offensive line coach, and he didn't get that offer immediately. when he was camping with Michigan State. He essentially said that, well, yeah, Coach Cap likes what I'm doing, but he still wants to see a little bit more of me. And, well, that he did show. Coach Cap got this offer, didn't commit immediately, still took his time. And believe me, I mean, this kid had some offers out there. Picked Michigan State over Baylor, Cincinnati, Illinois, Louisville, Minnesota, Missouri. But this 3-star kid picked Michigan State over, I think it was 24 offers, and probably more offers are to come for this kid moving forward as he goes into his senior year. But yeah, really took his time to decide if this is really what he wants out of his dream school. And Andrew Dennis, welcome. Here you are. You are a Michigan State Spartan. So there we have it. And look, we're going to talk about offensive line recruiting here for a little bit, but let's just talk about what this means for the class at Michigan State just stacked up in 2023. Of course, in 2023, Michigan State had that top 25 class in the nation. Not top 5. We like the class. It's not top 5. But what we do like about this top 25 class nationally is the emphasis they put on offensive line recruiting. You have Stanton Rommel, you have Keyshawn Blackstock, Cole Dellinger, and now to stack this class so far on top of it, Andrew Dennis, you like what you see there. Of course, we got a long way to go until signing day. There's still a lot of kids on Michigan State's board like DeAndre Carter. All right, another versatile offensive line, very highly rated kid from the state of California. He has been to Michigan State within the last month. We have William Satterfield, another offensive lineman, 4-star kid. Fletcher Westphal, 4-star kid, offensive tackle from Virginia. Fletcher Westphal has visited 3 times so far to East Lansing. 3-star Mike Williams, a kid from Maryland. And then Logan Bennett, a kid that's kind of flying under the radar from Maryland. He doesn't have a ranking on 27 Sports yet or on Rivals, but he was hosted 2 weeks ago. And this is a kid that has a pretty good frame as well, a 6'6" frame. So keep your eye on Logan Bennett as well. Of course, a handful of kids are going to be visiting this spring practice coming up this weekend. The open spring practice. Of course, they're practicing all spring, but the one that's going to be on Big Ten Network, whether it's a game or not, you're going to have some kids coming up then as well. It's going to be a somewhat big recruiting weekend, maybe not as big as last year with all the glitz and the glamour around that. But maybe they change their strategy of how they go after kids. Will it be as flashy as the Ferraris and everything like last year? But nevertheless, we'll talk more this week about who will be visiting this spring camp. But yeah, definitely a lot of more eyes on offensive line recruiting. And that's the bread and butter of, not just college football, but football in general, is how well can your offensive line be? It is all one in the trenches. I mean, just look at Georgia. Yes, they have dynamic athletes all around, but what really sticks out to me in their last 2 national title runs is what they can do inside, in the interior, and also, just have an honest conversation amongst Michigan State fans. Like, no, it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows here in East Lansing over the last year, but if there is really something that you could feel very, very hopeful about, it is that offensive line recruiting. I mean, this is just a conversation I had today around the Easter brunch table. People that I don't see ever so often know that I'm a crippling addict of Michigan State athletics, so they asked me a few questions, and they were like, oh, God, I hear recruiting isn't doing too well. And I was like, well, it's fine. It's going okay considering we're 5-7. But if there is really something to smile about, it is that offensive line recruiting. And how do you do that? We just named all the names: Rommel, Blackstock, Dellinger, all dynamite kids that any team would want to have. But how does that happen coming off a 5-7 season? Well, you do have that continuity with Coach Kapilovic, Chris Kapilovic, the offensive line coach, for anyone that doesn't know. But continuity means a lot to kids that are being recruited. And yes, while the last year didn't go great, Mel Tucker kept a lot of his staff on moving forward. And we got a ton of opinions on that left and right, but one that you do feel good about is Coach Cap, because when a kid comes to East Lansing, they're not going to really be wondering how long a coach is going to stay or if he's going to go, because Coach Cap has the contract that's going to keep him here in East Lansing for quite some time. And it's clear that not just the 2023 kids believe what he is selling, but also Andrew Dennis from Mount Pleasant as well, to get 2024 offensive line recruiting off to a hot start. So Yeah, I can only feel good about recruiting in that regard right there is that, yeah, okay, well, things are going pretty well for offensive line recruiting, and this Andrew Dennis almost instant commitment does not change the tune right there. We will be back with more mailbag questions. We're going to switch it up to some basketball talk here in a hot second to start, and then meander our way back to football through some mailbag questions. But first, need to talk your ear off about FanDuel Sports. I would like to congratulate FanDuel first and foremost because I bet on every single golfer except for Jon Rahm in this Masters season. But you know what? It's always a great time with FanDuel. They had amazing props for the golf season during the Masters weekend, and they're not going to stop that. We still got 3 more majors coming up. We have a golf tournament every single weekend, and also NHL playoffs, NBA playoffs, MLB, Grand Slams, no-hitters, and double plays are back, and there's no better place to get in on the MLB action than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And right now, new customers, yes, that's right. Maybe it's you. It gets even sweeter because you get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon, sign up, place your first bet, and you get $1,000 back in bonus bets if you don't win. And also, hey, if you've never dabbled with the same game parlay, go for it. Bet on over-under for bases for a player. Will a guy hit a home run? The money line of the game, over-under on runs. Stack that together. Get yourself paid. Do not miss on the chance to get your no-sweat first bet up to $1,000 when you join FanDuel today. Just go to FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. FanDuel, official partner of Major League Baseball. All right, let's get into the mix here. We're going to switch it up, go from the football field to the basketball court, and not a ton of news for Michigan State here. And I guess that is the news for Michigan State, is that we're still waiting the official announcement of Malik Hall. Will he come back? Will he not? And then Tyson Walker, will he come back? Will he not? Joey Houser has all but announced his final decision. He said before the tournament even started that never say never, but with that said, I'm probably not coming back here. He had that post on Instagram that pretty much was a farewell, but yeah, I guess nothing too official. I do know that Michigan State had a team meeting after the season to talk about this upcoming year, and there was one player that was not present. That was Joey Houser. So that is probably done there for anyone that has dreams and aspirations about Houser coming back. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I got a really hard time believing he comes back unless that NIL money really talks. But yeah, so right now, Malik Hall, Tyson Walker, hopefully this week we'll learn their decision. From what I've heard through the grapevine, within the week, if not week and a half, we will find out their final decision, which makes a lot of sense. A lot of kids nationally are making their decision right now, so that's not any crazy breaking news right there. 2 pieces of information, though. Pierre Brooks, that's right, the sophomore, he hit the transfer portal not too long ago. He has already found his new home. He is with Butler. He is with the Bulldogs. So go get him in Indianapolis, young man. Again, nothing but respect for Pierre Brooks. I'm rooting for the kid. It just didn't work out here. And that happens. It wasn't for lack of an attitude or, just sometimes a fit just doesn't work here. And I respect Tom Izzo for giving it a shot. I know that there are some voices out there, very small. I don't think anyone is really that passionate in the Pierre Brooks argument, but the few that have said something is like, oh, it was never going to work here. I never got why he brought him in here. He was a dynamic shooter, and he was the best recruit out of the state of Michigan. I mean, this is still a big factor for this program, is to dominate the 4 or 5 hour driving radius around the program. And Pierre Brooks obviously falls squarely in that. We saw it early in the season, the vision of what we wanted from Pierre Brooks, a guy that could hit some 3-pointers, some lawn balls. But also, if you're a Michigan State fan, you know that you can't really play for Tom Izzo unless you play some defense. I don't know how high on the priority list that was for Pierre Brooks. And then obviously, well, if you're not going to play defense, well, at least your shots have to fall. And by the time Big Ten play started, those shots weren't falling anymore. So maybe we just needed a hard hit of the reset button for Pierre Brooks. No hard feelings whatsoever. I think between the program and Pierre Brooks, it just wasn't meant to be. So go kill it in Indianapolis, young man. Also, through the grapevine here, this was a screenshot of a Facebook post that was shared with yours truly, and it was a fan I saw Malik Hall, and he wrote that. Well, allegedly, I'm going to just use that word before I get into real trouble here. I know I'm doing something crazy and going off a Facebook post, but kind of heard more than this. But Malik Hall was flying somewhere to get some foot surgery done for him. Of course, this might not impact what he decides to do in the offseason, but this is more so of a reminder that, like, yeah, hey, Malik Hall, he had 2 foot injuries during the season. He came back, played the last handful of games for Michigan State. Like, I'm doing this again, I guess. I'm getting on my soapbox and talking about, yeah, I know Malik wasn't a perfect player at the end of the year, but he was playing on a foot that needed surgery, for crying out loud, at the end of the year. And then also, on top of that, if you didn't want Malik Hall playing, then, well, who else did you want in that position? But you guys have heard me on this soapbox too many times. I'm not going to go any further and cry about it. But yeah, so Malik Hall, most likely medical procedures on his foot, thanks to a Facebook post. I know it sounds ridiculous, but like, yeah, no, but that is actually something to really look at, because this kid was grinding at the end of the year. So just wanted a little more respect on Malik Hall's name before we go any further. Let's go a little further, and we're going to go into the mailbag. LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com. Plenty of you have emailed us. We would, of course, love plenty more. Anytime you have a mailbag question, a Top 5 Tuesday recommendation, if you've caught that during the offseason, go for it, LockedOnSpartans@gmail.com. This one has been sitting in the hopper for a few days from Jeff, and we're going back to the football field, and he writes, now bear with me here. If you have the option of MSU going 8-4 this year with Payton Thorne starting every game, or 6-6 with Katin Houser starting most or all of the games and ready to hit the ground running as an unquestioned starter in 2024, which would you choose? I would choose the Houser option. I see 8-4 as the ceiling this year, but if Houser is the real deal and he's ready for 2024, they could be contenders in the Big Ten, especially with new divisions that may be more favorable. First and foremost, yeah, I don't see how divisions get any less favorable in 2024 once they switch them up. There is a disparity between East and West, and it's pretty clear that Michigan State is in the dog pound between the two. Anyway, let's talk about the actual question itself. And before going any further, I hold the right to change my answer during the offseason. This is one of those questions that I can catch myself having a different answer if you ask me a month from now, a week from now, or God, even when I wake up Monday morning. But right now I feel pretty confident in what I'm about to say right now, and I'm going to take Jeff's side, which just on paper sounds like Looney Tunes, doesn't it? That you would rather win 2 less games in the college football season just so a sophomore quarterback can start than go 8-4 with Payton Thorne. And my answer is, yeah, kind of. Yeah, yes. Because, I mean, and it's as simple as this. We'll start off with a simple answer. What does 8-4 do to me? What does 8-4 do to you? Is the Music City Bowl, for example, really that much different than the Tax Slayer Bowl? Not really to me. 8-4 and 6-6 kind of falls into that list of tier C bowl games, to be honest, where you're just, thrilled to be going bowling here. Now, there's a lot more layers on this onion, and we're going to talk about probably the toppest layer amongst it, and that's why, I guess, just to defend it even further than just to be picky about bowl games when December and January rolls around. But yeah, I take a lot of stock into throwing the young guy in there, giving him a full year of experience instead of, the senior guy coming back for a third year in the starting role just to spit out an 8-4 season. I think this program has a lot bigger aspirations. I think the program has a lot bigger aspirations. And I think if you want to keep climbing as a program, you also need to show your recruits that there is a vision out there. And maybe you can sell it to these recruits that, hey, this sophomore quarterback is playing. Look at what he's doing. And no, not in the sense that, like, hey, you could start as early as a sophomore, which there is some credence to that. But it's also, look at what this kid's doing. When you come here, either immediately or in 2 years, he's going to be a junior or a senior. This is who's going to be guiding us. We have our starting quarterback for the next 3 years. And also, if Katin Houser wins the starting role, I think that means that he just straight up earned it as well. He would have to unseat Payton Thorne, who has been the starter the last 2 years. I don't think that the staff is taking this lightly whatsoever. They're not going to give it to Payton, or they're not going to give it to Katin Houser just to coddle him. Whoever wins this competition has straight up just won it. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a ton of politics around it. Yes, I think that Payton has maybe a slight edge because he is the guy that was a starter going into this season last 2 years. But if you can have a spring full of scrimmages between the two or three, no disrespect to Noah Kim, I'm very sorry I keep doing this. I'm very sorry. I got to get better at this. But yeah, I mean, I think that it's going to be earned at the very end. And I think Katin Houser gives you the higher ceiling. All right. From what I've been hearing, his arm strength compared to everyone else is off the charts. All right. He's that bigger bodied kid. He's putting up good numbers in the weight room. And if that has to be shown in the running game, for example, how many times do you see it at a pro level from, and this is the most extreme example of this. I'm not calling him Josh Allen, but for example, like a big body guy like Josh Allen or Jalen Hurts, if you will. Again, hear me here. Like this is just the examples I'm using, but physically, whether the way he's built and the arm strength and the kind of throws he can make, Katin Houser does offer the higher ceiling. So yes, well, next year might just spit out a 6-6 record. I like the idea that you could build on top of that, and I would be lying to you if I said that I wasn't scared of Katin Houser transferring should Payton Thorne win the job, and then, okay, well, Payton Thorne gives you an 8-4 season. What's next after that? Sam Levitt? Okay, well, I hope you're the guy because we really don't got any other options here unless we're going to go swimming in the transfer portal. So, yeah, I like the idea of continuity, stability, and also kind of a nod from the coaching staff telling us that, hey, guys, yeah, Katin Houser is kind of the truth, and that's why he won this role here. So, yeah, that's kind of the long, rambling answer to that. I know it sounds crazy. Now, you asked the question here. Let's say that Katin Houser can give you an 8-4 record or Payton Thorne gives you a 10-2 record. That's a little different because now we're talking like tier A or like very high tier B bowl games versus that Music City Bowl, for example, or that Holiday Bowl, for example. Like if it's the difference between a Cotton Bowl, a New Year's Six Bowl, I mean, that might resonate with recruits a little more and the fan base a little more too. But yeah, just since we're talking about, I don't know a big difference between the Quick Lane Bowl and the Cheez-It Bowl, for example. You know, at the end of the day, an 8-4 game is probably the same bowl game you're going to get into at 6-6, so to speak. So that's why I think it's more future oriented. So that is my question right there. Now, okay, I'll take it. You know, if I can keep rambling, let's say Payton Thorne gives you a 8-4 year and Katin Houser gives you a 5-7 year. Then you got me in a real pickle right now because I don't know if I can personally do 2 years without a bowl game. I don't know if you guys out there can do it. I like to think that we're on the same page. I really would not like to go back-to-back seasons without a bowl game. And more importantly, I don't know if the players and the recruits would really appreciate that as well. So at that point, yeah, I would take Payton Thorne, but that was a really great question by Jeff. 8-4 for 6-6 is like those two perfect records where you can have a nice debate with yourself about it. So there you have it. Here is another question, not actually sent to lockedonspartans@gmail.com. This was sent to my Twitter, Sheehan_sports. And this is from the Chop Man himself. And this is just a very broad question. This was for his whole audience. What sport is harder to win a national championship in? The answers were between basketball and football. And on his poll, football was winning at a 67-33% clip. I'm going to go with football. I'm going to join the 67%. I know it's very boring to go with the majority, but yeah. Look, if I blacked out into a coma before the national title game, I might have an argument for basketball, but just seeing what Georgia did to TCU, which had a great season. They had every right to be in the national championship game. I know there's a lot of talk of like, oh, they were a Mickey Mouse team the whole way. They're frauds. Like, no, they played who they had to play. They won a very great game against a really good Michigan team. They earned their spot in the national title game. But holy mother of God, does Georgia really just show how high that mountaintop is for every other program in the nation? We've talked about it round and round and round, and we will continue to talk about it round and round and round. It's just how well Georgia does recruiting because that is the lifeblood of college sports. Michigan State had an incredible recruiting class. All right, they had nine 4-stars in this incoming class. We're feeling really good about this. All right, we're feeling great about it. Okay, I think Alabama and Georgia each had like 7 5-stars on their team and then like 13 more 4-stars. So they are at a completely different league. And yes, I know that, especially us Michigan State fans going through the Mark D'Antonio era, where he turned 3 stars into NFL players, into Big Ten Players of the Year, that we maybe fall in love with this idea that, hey, recruiting doesn't matter. But as time has gone on and we saw how unsustainable that was, like, no, recruiting does matter. And when only 4 teams are making the college football playoff, and I know it's going to be expanded here in a little bit, like you're not really getting a lot of upsets in these college football playoffs. I know TCU over Michigan is a very rare example, but outside of that, like usually the semifinals are blowouts. And then, well, if you're on the wrong side of it, these are blowouts in the national title game as well. Whereas basketball, on the other hand, right? What did we just see in the Final Four? We saw 5 seed, 4 seed, 9 seed, and another 5 seed, I believe that was. And don't get me wrong, like I'm not saying that this was a fraudulent tournament, because I think it was a legitimate national title winner in UConn. Like, yes, they had that 2-week blip in the season where they did not look good at all, but wow, when you win every game in the tournament by 13 points, okay, you deserve to win the national title, but still, a team like San Diego State was still able to go to the national title game, and unlike TCU, who found their way to the national title game in football and got dummied within the first quarter, San Diego State was in that game for a respectable amount of time, at least. And it is, easier to find your way into the Final Four of college basketball than college football, because, well, in football, you have 12 games, sometimes 13, ideally 13, actually, if you're going to go to the conference title game, and every single one of those needs to count. Okay, you just have to have a 1, 2, 3, 4 game win streak to make the Final Four, 5-game win streak to make to the national title. And believe me, I'm not saying that, oh yeah, it's easy, it's fluky, but like there's a lot of wacky-tacky stuff that happens in college basketball. So it's not just because that a 9 seed got to the Final Four this year, but it's also because if you're a 1 seed, and Michigan State fans know this all too well. Let's go back to 2016 when we were feeling really good about our 2-seeded Michigan State Spartans, hot off of a Big Ten tournament win. You got to bang out 6 wins to win that national title, but it can happen at any time now. Okay, I mean, so yes, it is very hard in basketball. You could lose immediately in the first round like Purdue did this year, or like our Spartans did back in 2016. But at the end of the day, it is ideally a 4-game win streak to get to that Final Four, 2 more to win the national title, whereas, well, football, not only do you have to run the table for 13 games, or 14 or 15 if you want to win the national title, but you also need to have the horses to win that many games as well. And how is that done? That is done with recruiting. How do you recruit? Well, you build a lot of momentum. How do you get momentum? Well, you got to start winning. You got to have guys that have a lot of NIL money on the side, and you got to have a coaching staff that also can orchestrate all of that brilliantly and coach those kids once they get up there. And it's just such a far climb up that mountain. Oh, nice question, Chop, man. No, I really do appreciate that. That will be the first time we answer some iteration of that question this offseason, I guarantee you. But man, it's just such a tall mountain to climb. I'm fine. Everything's fine, actually. No, everything is so great you can't believe it, actually. All right, gang. We will be back tomorrow. We're going to do Top 5 Tuesday. Again, as we've been doing this off season, the next Top 5 Tuesday on tomorrow's show will be Top 5 storylines going into the spring game Bonanza Palooza, whatever they're calling this Saturday, whether it is a live game, whether it is just a live practice. We got the top 5 storylines going into that. Any news that breaks, if Malik Hall wants to make an announcement, please. If Tyson Walker wants to make an announcement, my God, I beg you. Or if Joey Houser wants to stun the world and come back to Michigan State, who am I to say no? I'd have a great time doing that. But hey, you know where to find it once the news breaks. We got a full slate of shows coming up this week for you guys. Keep it locked onto Locked On Spartans. Love you all. Go Green.